Hey, it's Greg Yetter. Today's lesson comes from the book The Idea Factory, which was about the rise and fall of AT&T's Bell Labs. While Bell Labs is now a shadow of its former self, it was one of the innovation powerhouses throughout most of the 20th century. Bell Labs employees came up with many ideas that we take for granted today, such as cell phones, the UNIX operating system, transistors, photovoltaics, the concept of bits and bytes, and the programming languages C and C++. Most of the book, The Idea Factory, discusses the specific inventions and interpersonal relationships at the labs, but I want to review one of the themes that jumped out at me, which is the idea of constantly reinvesting profits into research and development. And as you'll learn later in the video, this innovation model is currently under threat due to a change in the tax code. You see, before the AT&T monopoly was broken up in the 80s, the company heavily invested in new speculative technologies. In fact, AT&T did not pay a consistent dividend to its shareholders until after the antitrust suit, preferring instead to reinvest in growth. Many of its profits were directed toward Bell Labs, the primary vehicle responsible for generating new ideas. And we have this heavy investment in research to thank for world-changing technologies such as the transistor and the cell phone. You can trace Bell Labs' origins back to Alexander Graham Bell, who started the Volta lab after the success of the telephone. Like the prolific inventor Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell was tireless in trying to improve the telephone and coming up with adjacent ideas. And it was this culture of trying to outdo oneself, of not settling when you made something successful, that make these inventors household names today. Reinvesting profits into growth is not unique to Bell Labs. One of today's greatest examples of preferring growth over paying a dividend is Amazon. Amazon's founder, Jeff Bezos, has reiterated in a number of shareholder letters that the company cares about long-term profit and short-term growth, not the other way around. Specifically, Amazon tends to spin up many experiments knowing that there's a high chance of failure in each individual case. Jeff Bezos said in a 2016 shareholder letter, "To invent, you have to experiment. And if you know in advance that it's going to work, it's not an experiment." Most large organizations embrace the idea of invention, but are not willing to suffer the string of failed experiments necessary to get there. Amazon has many business units, such as e-commerce, production studios, Whole Foods grocery stores, advertising, and Amazon Web Services, commonly called AWS. The company buckets its earnings reports into three divisions, which are North America, International, and AWS. AWS tends to report a higher operating income, while North America and International are generally reported at a loss or close to a loss. What this means is that AWS is highly profitable, but the company is still investing in growth in its other business units. For example, they might be taking some profit from AWS and their advertising businesses and funneling the money into the growth of retail and e-commerce. And that's the key to making this idea work. You already have to have a profitable business unit to start investing in growth, either in the same business unit or in other areas of the business. Warren Buffett wrote in a 2016 shareholder letter, "There's no rule that you have to invest money where you've earned it. Indeed, it's often a mistake to do so. Truly great businesses earning huge returns on tangible assets can't for any extended period reinvest a large portion of their earnings internally at high rates of return." His point is that you can keep investing in a business until it has become optimally efficient. After that, take the profits and either pay back the shareholders or direct the investment into a new growth area. Now, constantly growing one company obviously raises concerns about monopolistic behavior. Indeed, AT&T was broken up in the 80s, and some might argue that companies like Amazon are too big, hurting the output of the whole economy. We should define what is meant by a monopoly, because there are good monopolies and bad monopolies. Peter Thiel, in his book 0 to 1, discussed his definition of a good monopoly. In this book, we're not interested in illegal bullies or government favorites. By monopoly, we mean the kind of company that's so good at what it does that no other firm can offer a close substitute. He went on to say, Every monopoly is unique, but they usually share some combination of the following characteristics: proprietary technology, network effects, economies of scale, and branding. Now, AT&T definitely had some of those good attributes thanks to the Bell Labs, but it may have also had some aspects of a natural monopoly, making it impossible for other companies to compete. The problem with bad monopolies is the concentration of talent and the inability for others to compete, limiting the overall size of the sector to a single company or a handful of related companies. Now, this has implications for the economy as a whole. But we have to look at the overall tech scene to see that there's much more than big tech companies like Meta, Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. Smaller tech companies are springing up all the time, many of which will fail, but some of which will grow to become large businesses. OpenAI is an example of a company that is growing fast because it was a few inches ahead on commercializing transformers. And new AI startups are opening up every day based on similar generative AI technologies. OpenAI was funded through a venture capital model, but that's not the only way to build a business. The popular AI mid-journey image generation software was entirely self-funded. And thousands of other small tech businesses are being built to sustain the living of just one person. You can find many examples of these companies on the site Indie Hackers. Those businesses that are successful will create new angel investors, venture arms, or in-house R&D projects, leading to more innovation, but at a more distributed level than one big corporation. While it's sad that Bell Labs was broken up, a plurality of innovative smaller businesses surely will be a net positive to the economy. And who knows, maybe one of these companies will become the next Bell Labs. Now, there is a threat to this innovation model in the US, and that is a change to the IRS tax code, Section 174. Other resources will do a much better job laying out the specifics, but essentially, Section 174 no longer allows tech companies, large or small, to expense R&D costs and labor. Instead, they should amortize the costs over 5 to 15 years. In essence, reinvesting into growth won't be the straightforward move that it was in the past. In the short term, this results in higher tax bills, less hiring, and more layoffs for technical talent. And some are speculating that it will discourage incorporating and developing intellectual property in the US. In the long term, I don't think this is going to be good for the US workforce and our economic output, especially compared to other companies that are investing heavily in R&D and technology growth. Section 174 would affect all types of technology companies, from bootstrapped indie hacker businesses all the way up to large tech companies like Amazon and Microsoft. Now, whether Section 174 will remain in effect or whether it will be repealed remains to be seen, but I'd encourage you to read up on it and develop your own opinion. I found a good summary that I linked in the description. Now, with that said, I want to thank you for watching today's lesson on reinvesting profits and the implications that we have in the 2020s with Section 174. I hope you have a great day.